to our final segment with Miss Alma, who we're going to get into a little bit more sensitive topics with this one, guys. So just a little bit of a warning. We're going to get a little bit more personal, a little bit more get a little bit more sensitive about this stuff. We're going to be diving into some of the issues with LGBTQ and what they're experiencing right now and some of the different things going on there. But let's go ahead and bring in Miss Alma, who is joining us from Mexico.
Hi.
Oh, you're on mute, dear. There she is.
Hello.
Hi. And this is the day for glasses. Everybody's having glasses on today. Oh, we have a question.
Program. Oh.
You did. Wait, hold on real quick. I just want to respond to this before we dive into it. It says, from Lisbeth, I'm interested on a mental health awareness career. I had a breakdown at work and didn't know what it was. After that, I thought I might have reacted differently had I known about mental illness. If Michaela, I mean, you're in the mental wellness career, how would you recommend that somebody research that and get into it? Just real quick.
To find out like how to start a counseling career?
Or just mental, because there's all different kinds of mental wellness
just
careers.
Do a Google search for maybe some schools in your area and see what programs they offer. Go talk to some professors. Oh my gosh, I love talking to my professors. Just sit down with them and have a conversation. Honestly, it's a lot like interviewing for a job. Just sit down and see what sparks your interest, and maybe even do some research into the different fields you find. Look up some YouTube videos about people who work in that field. Yeah, right. I think that's a 100% place to start.
It is. And also look into certifications, things like that. If you're just wanting to raise awareness, that type of thing. There's all different kinds of things that you can do. So yeah, start with Google, then go out and talk to people that actually do it. Get on LinkedIn, reach out to people in those fields, see what really strikes you. So Alma, you're muted again, doll.
I didn't want my typing to.
You're good. You're good. We just talked about that today. I was just giving her cred because we were just talking about that the other day. So I want to end the show talking about kind of a more sensitive topic that you and I have discussed. And that is how mental wellness in the workplace and is impacting, or lack of workplace right now is impacting the LGBTQ community very specifically. And the reason, guys, that I am bringing this up on the show is that a lot of people do not realize the level of suicide, the level of depression, the level of just severe detachment and isolation that a lot of these people are suffering, even more so than the average quote citizen. So I just want to kind of touch on this for just a little bit. So first of all, let's talk about how COVID has hit that community even harder. Alma, what are some of your thoughts? I know you're a big advocate.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Catherine and Michaela, for having me on today. And mental health is, I think it's an issue that concerns every human being. So whether you identify as LGBTQI plus or not, it's something that should be of concern and interest to you. And I think where the issue around work and jobs and employment impacts the LGBTQ community, I think it's on one level, it's pretty much the same in the sense that just like anyone else, we can be looking for a role or in between roles. Maybe we were let go from our previous role because of COVID. It all depends on what area we're in. I'm a technology worker. I transitioned from education into tech, thanks to actually lesbians who code. And one of the things that I have seen with my community is that we're like everyone else in the sense that this is impacting us. But then you have the other layer to that is, as a job seeker, do you want people to know how you identify?
Right.
Are you, is this something that you're embracing? Are you out? Are you not out? It has so much to do with, on a global level, what country do you live in? What society are you living your life in? Right. And I consider myself very fortunate that as an American, as a US citizen, I feel I have those protections, I quote unquote, to be able to identify openly LGBTQ. Right. However, I know that's not the experience for everybody. And especially when you have younger people who are coming out or just discovering their sexuality that might not have a family that is supportive, that is still to this day, such a big issue that we face when it comes to mental health. And as someone who I came out a little bit later in life, I also struggle with that because it is still an issue for my family. Not for me, and I have kids. It's not an issue for me and my kids, but for my family at large, they still have issues with it, and those are their issues, not mine. But I've been able to overcome that through a lot of work, as some of your past guests mentioned, creating that support network, doing a lot of inner work, taking radical accountability for what I need to do. And a lot of that has been therapy.
I love that term. Hold on, I want to pause that real quick. Radical accountability.
Yeah.
Because guys, ultimately, any journey that you go on with your mental health or even your physical health is going to be you and things that you have to change and things that you have to take responsibility for and do. It's true. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is so huge. And I wonder if, and please feel free to tell us if you've had an experience with this that you feel comfortable sharing. I wonder what the similarity is between someone talking about their mental illness to people at work and coming out, and if it's a similar type experience or if it's very different. Do you?
Well, considering that, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it called the general diagnostic, the GSM? Is it the GSM or the DSM?
The diagnostic and statistical manual, yes.
So I remember my mom did when I was a teenager, and she went back to school, in New York, where I'm from. And she had this educational psychology book, and it identified homosexuality as a mental illness. And we are now on the same page. It's not a mental illness. You are who you are. But I think where mental health is concerned, and if you're struggling with any kind of mental health issues, or you've been diagnosed with mental illness, to be able to talk about that in the workplace, I think is just as a difficult subject as it might be for people who are not quite sure if they're ready to be out. Right. So I think, again, it comes back down to that one person. Don't feel like you have to, like you are obligated. And that is why radical accountability is so important, because we need to learn to protect ourselves. We need to learn to be our own advocates. And that's why I think it's so incredibly important to build a support network. So again, coming back to the topic of LGBTQ, as somebody who identifies in that community and in the process that I've gone on, and the journey that I've traveled in coming out, building my support network was so important. And it's something that I continue to foster to this day. I am actively involved in different organizations that provide me with that support network. So both professional organizations as well as more personal. So for example, GLAAD has a lot of local support groups that I joined the Austin chapter because I'm binational. So I go, pre-COVID, I was a little bit more between countries. But for example, we have in Austin, we have a bunch of different support groups all over the city that they've all gone online now. So if you live in Austin or you live in Chicago or wherever, and something doesn't fit for you for scheduling reasons, you can find other support groups
virtually.
So you want to have that support network. And going back to your question about work, does your work have an employee resource group? That can be such an important,
Yes.
powerful tool for you to use. If you don't have an employee resource group, maybe reach out to HR or perhaps operations, whoever.
And ask.
Yeah, ask if you
what
can
you
maybe
can do.
help start one. Exactly.
Yeah, have some initiative. And I want to talk about real quick, because this is something that I am really big on, is self-education. Okay. And we're going to talk about this from the other side. Okay. So guys, when you are in the workplace, and especially if you're a hiring manager or an entrepreneur or whatever the manager, whatever the case is, you need to have an understanding of other human beings and their experiences, in at least enough to be able to work with them in an effective and positive manner, right? So you need to understand, you need to educate yourself, you need to learn. So if, let's say, you get an employee and they identify as non-binary, this is something I'm currently learning about. So I'm probably annoying the crud out of poor Madison Butler and her partner, because they have a whole podcast about this, and they do a lot of education. And I have a million bajillion questions because I don't understand. It's not my personal experience. So I want to learn. And I do the same thing with the transgender community, because that's not my experience. So I want to learn, I want to understand. So I do a lot of research, and I reach out to people and I talk to them and I learn their experiences. And if you're in management or entrepreneur or HR or anything else, that is your responsibility, guys. I just want to put that out there. That is your responsibility, to come to the point that you have an understanding of your employees and what's going on with them. Again, you're not entitled to their whole story. You're not, not all of that, but educate, because that's how you overcome biases in your head, and biases, and that radical responsibility. It is your responsibility to eradicate your own biases and your own negative outlooks. And your responsibility.
Yeah. And I mentioned GLAAD. I made a mistake. I meant PFLAG. So this is a great right here. This is my chapter of Austin, but PFLAG, just visit the website. It's going to have a lot of information regarding, these questions that you have around non-binary folks, transgender folks, just people in the LGBTQ community. PFLAG is a wealth of information, and you, Catherine, can attend a support group. Like you can go. You don't have to identify as LGBTQ to go. You can go and say, hey, I'm trying to learn more. I'm here because of I work with non-binary folks, or I work with transgender folks, and I want to be a better ally. I want to support them better. So I understand that starts with me. I'm here to educate myself. And Google's free. So you can always Google.
But Google will only get you so far with these subjects. Let me tell you, I know this from personal experience. Google will only get you so far. So do Google, YouTube, TikTok can be kind of interesting. Instagram, learn, get out there, and don't insert your opinions. And you can have your opinions. That's everybody has opinions about different things, but as long as it's an educated one, then you're entitled to. I tell people, you're not entitled to have an uneducated opinion. That's just a reaction. You're entitled to have an educated opinion about something, but go understand other people. And this will help you with everything in your life. Understand the other side, understand what's going on. If you're ignorant in this day and age, it's because you choose to be. Let's just put that on out there. Unless you live in some remote part of the world that has no internet, you're choosing ignorance. And that's just beyond me. But learn, understand, and reach out to people and have a human understanding for what they're going through. Because we've talked about on the show today, isolation. That's horrible. It's a horrible thing to do. That's a form of torture, is extreme isolation. So if somebody is experiencing isolation, they're having a trauma. Okay. And they need help, and they need allies, and they need somebody to listen to them. If somebody is feeling disenfranchised, which I've spoken to some members of the LGBTQ community who use that word a lot, disenfranchised, disconnected, removed. And that's another really bad feeling, because as human beings, even the introverts like myself, we're still made to be social. We're still made to connect. And so feeling that you're removed is a really painful experience for a human being. That is a horrible experience.
It's devastating.
Yes. And yet that's why we still continue to have these high levels of suicide among people of the LGBTQ community, because there continues to be a lot of ignorance, a lot of judgment, a lot of rejection from families of origins. As a mother, as a parent myself, I cannot imagine ever telling my child some of the things that I've heard from my own mother because of my sexuality. I mean, it blows my mind. And unfortunately, it's still an issue that we are dealing with. I think that support network is so incredibly vital, especially when you talked about with isolation. And if you want to, learn, if you're interested in learning, I really do think it starts with yourself. It starts with one. So
100%.
I also, another point that I would really like to drive home is the importance of nourishing a contemplative self-development practice. So you're only as good as you're willing to be for yourself. So that, for me, that looks like, doing the deep work with the therapy, but also I have a regular meditation and yoga practice, and I've been developing it for years. And when I fall off and I didn't do yoga today, and instead of going down that hole of you're a bad person because you didn't do yoga, practicing that compassion for myself. And if I do that
Give yourself grace.
If I do that for myself, I can do it for others. So when I'm faced with somebody on the internet who is ignorant and hateful and homophobic and racist, I can have that grace for them, in the sense that I understand that they're speaking from a place of self-hate.
Right.
Because if they loved themselves, if they truly accepted themselves, they wouldn't be doing that. And that's why I one of the final things that I would say is just be really selective of the information you consume. And that goes along with who are the gurus, who are the teachers you're listening to for your self-development. I am a big supporter of the holistic psychologist.
Yes. And I want to throw this, I want to throw this out there real quick, guys, because I literally just did a post about this, and I've talked about this on the show before. In fact, I talked about it with Tara Furiani when she came on the show, last show. Pay attention to your sources. Mm-hmm. If a source is obviously biased, for instance, if you're looking up LGBTQ, and this is nothing against religious publications in general, but that's not going to be your best source of information. Honestly, sound a little bit controversial here. I don't usually go to a lot. I do some. I don't go to a lot of LGBTQ publications to get my LGBTQ facts, like my actual, the numbers. I go there to learn about the mentality and all of that, but I don't go there for my facts. I go directly to government sources. I go directly to study groups. What's the group? I just cited them on something. Oh, hold on. I've got them right here. Haha. I'm gonna pull this out here. So the Human Rights Council. There you go. Mm-hmm. That's a good group. That's a great group to get very unbiased, factual information on this type of thing. And it is hard, by the way, to get LGBTQ stats and numbers. It's very hard. There's not a lot of this being tracked, which is very interesting to me.
Governments, like I said, governments are made up by people, and people are biased.
Right, 100%.
However non-biased we try to be, as someone who's worked in academic research, we're human beings. We have a bias. And so that's why it's so important to be able to replicate studies, scientifically speaking.
But research your research, right? Make sure that you're going to credible sources and cite your sources. Anytime you're going to put out a fact, cite that source and put out how you know that it's valid. That this is very, very important. But do research, learn, and be an advocate for human beings, because somebody else's lifestyle is not your business. As long as they're not hurting other people, and, going around raping people or murdering people, it's not your business. It's not. And so hating someone based on who they are as a person, whether it's religion, whether it's sexual orientation, whether it's gender identity, whether it's gender itself, that doesn't help anybody, including yourself, at all. So thank you so much, Alma, for coming on and sharing with us and helping us grow today. I really, really appreciate you. Any final thoughts for the audience?
For my final thoughts, I just invite you that when you do go and you go to the social media and you're interested in looking for information from people in the LGBTQ community, remember that we're also humans, and we can also be biased. And I say this only because there are, people in the LGBTQI+ community who have very different opinions on certain subjects and topics. Mm-hmm. I'm personally I'm a very political person. I have a degree in international relations, and I feel very passionate about politics. And that doesn't mean that my politics are going to be the same as someone else who identifies as LGBTQ. Right. So we are human beings. And so, get a broad selection and listen actively to people in the community so you can learn.
100%. Thank you so much, Alma. And guys, again, if you want to connect with Alma, if you want to learn from her, if you want suggestions from her, anything like that, please connect with her on LinkedIn. Her link is down in the comments. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of the day.
And Twitter. I'm on Twitter.
Oh, and Twitter. And she's on Twitter too. So look her up on Twitter too.
Handlebar Alma Rinasz.
That's nice and easy. All right. We'll see you later. Thank you.
Bye.